Welcome back to Les Schwab Tire Center's Outdoor GPS, presented by Fisherman's Marine and Outdoor.
Welcome back, everyone. Joined in the studio from ODFW, we've got Derek Broman. He is the game program manager. You're in the middle of this, aren't you?
Yep.
I mean, every day this is kind of what you have to deal with.
Losing sleep.
Is this something that you foresaw before you got in to ODFW? Is this something that when you were, say, going through college, going through training classes, whatever it was, that you were concerned about before it actually became a concern? Was this on your radar prior to it being something that Oregon was now very concerned with? Or was it simply that you knew or had heard about it from back east and then all of a sudden you just had it? Was there any foreseen knowledge that we were going to be here in 2024?
I mean, this is a little off topic, but yeah, I think the history of the wildlife profession, the wildlife management, wildlife conservation profession, you hear about disease, that's what it used to be, just like, okay, you'd have a segment on that.
Sure.
But now it is so much more in the forefront of, we've done a great job of helping our population so they're no longer going to be tanking and threatened endangered species, but now it's these real issues like disease, climate change, major habitat issues, that now that's much more of a part of the curriculum. So I knew about it, and in my ventures professionally, I've been in certain states that were on the cusp, but also states that just got detected for the first time. Mm-hmm. So I've seen how that's been occurring elsewhere. Unfortunately, I'm now in a state like Oregon, where it's like we don't yet have it, or at least we don't know we have it yet.
Sure.
So it's like,
Sure.
It's kind of a blessing that we're in that state to know what could happen and how bad it can be, because that can help motivate everybody, and that's why everybody's at the table today.
What would be a good example? Any state, and we're not taking shots at any state, understanding, of course, that we have people that watch us throughout the country. But there are some certain states that had some pretty bad issues. What would you say would be that worst case scenario?
Well, it's just maybe I'm biased because I'm a professional, but just knowing that you're having to dedicate all of these trained wildlife biologists that are experts on so many things and now turning them all into CWD biologists.
Right.
It's just a travesty. I've been in a state where basically we had to shut everything down and send everybody to one corner of the state for fear of like CWD coming into the state. So now all of those other services and public services that those individuals were providing could no longer be provided because they had to dedicate everything to CWD.
Interesting. It is that much of a situation. It's that much of a concern.
Yeah, yeah.
You really need to take it serious, everyone. And we're going to continue to do as much information offering that we can here on GPS, because it is certainly, I mean, listen, I've got a 12-year-old. A lot of you got kids out there. Some of you got younger ones, grandkids, whatever it is. You want them to have an opportunity to be able to go out and enjoy deer and elk hunting in our state, right? Now, there's a number of reasons why we could be concerned about different opportunities, but deer and elk hunting are very specific. And a lot of folks have been chasing these things for generations, for crying out loud. And this is something that, from the concerns I've heard from others, could eliminate that. Now, again, if you become part of the fix, which is helping them get the information that they need to have as quickly as possible, that can start that next step, which could be very scary. We'll get there. Okay, I do have a specific question for you on that, but you're getting help, right? OHA is now doing a drawing for folks that have their animals tested, or where they might have a chance to win a rifle, a scope, whatever. That's a great partnership.
Yeah, that's new. And so that shows the dedication from our hunt groups that this is that serious. So for every animal that you get tested, you get entered into that drawing.
Right.
So if you're fortunate enough to get a deer and an elk, shoot, get them both tested, you get in twice.
Absolutely. And OHA, Oregon Hunters Association, they've been on the forefront of a lot of different things. Let's talk about folks that travel, okay? Montana. Prior to the show, he had mentioned that he had spoken with somebody professionally that was coming from Montana, knew the routine, knew that it was not legal to bring the head over, spine, a number of different pieces that you're not allowed to do so. What's that look like for say I live in Oregon and I go to Montana, I take a deer and I want to be able to bring it home, waiting for testing. I think it was individual.
Yeah.
What's that look like? I mean, that's a law, right? We can't travel from one state to the next because of chronic wasting disease.
Correct. And it's just, you can't bring the spinal cord or any brain tissue. So that means that the skull cap and the skull has to be fully cleaned. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, this individual who I spoke to yesterday was familiar with that, which is great, which is hopefully our new norm. Like, that's been on the books for a number of years, just like not using urine-based scents and lures. We can't have those
Right.
for the same purpose. So this individual is worried about, like, okay, I brought my meat home. What happens if my test that I got taken in Montana comes back positive? My answer to him is, you call ODFW right away. We'll go take care of it. So this is that serious that we will bend over backwards. We'll send somebody out. We'll properly dispose of that however we need to make sure that we're not going to have this come into our state.
We don't know 100% at the very least what that meat is going to be like if it were tested positive from another state or from here, okay? It's just nobody knows that yet. So should folks be concerned that may not have had those animals tested, what would you recommend? Just flat don't eat it? I didn't get it tested, head's long gone, I've got all this meat. Do we look for signs? I mean, is there, what is there?
Yeah, when it comes to CWD, really the test is sampling brain tissue or lymph nodes.
Okay.
And so if you don't have those, we're probably not going to be able to get it from the meat. Now, if you don't feel comfortable, that's like anything. You know, you might see something a little funky in your meat and maybe you just choose not to without, you know, throwing everything away a little bit carelessly, and now you're violating other laws. But ultimately,
good point.
You know, if there's nothing says thus far that eating meat of an animal that's tested positive for CWD can give you CWD. However, the CDC does recommend that you don't consume meat from an animal that was CWD positive. So it's, unfortunately, I can't tell you what to do. It's your level of familiarity, comfort, and with, you know, if you're sending it, you're feeding to your kids, your family, it's where you're at. But ultimately, if you still have that head, if you have that parts of the animals that we can sample, just hold off. Get that sample in, get it in the freezer, and then just wait those couple weeks until you get that test back to find out if it's a good, you know, you're good to go.
Okay, so you mentioned processors, right? So if you take it in, you get your meat processed. Not everyone does it, but the vast majority of people do. I'm one of them. You can't take in, a lot of places these days won't allow you to bring in bones. It has to be deboned prior to getting it processed by them, and there's a number of reasons for that, CWD being a part of it. Is it all of those processors that are part of that program that's on the ODFW's website? You can find it right on there, which ones actually are participating with this testing process. Does it automatically get done? Do you request it to be done? What's the process?
This is, we are trying to recruit taxidermists and meat processors to provide that service. And they get a small financial incentive for every sample that they take. But it's on them. We're not forcing anything. We're just trying to give those folks the opportunity to participate and help out in this whole big effort.
And trust me, if you're a food processor, if you're a meat processor, and you'd like to be able to continue to have that landfall of dough come October through January, February, it'd be a good idea to watch your business. I'd call it good business to make sure that everybody's getting them tested. All right, so I don't ever warn my guests ahead of time if I've got some sort of a question that might be a little interesting, but I did because I respect you, of course, and I appreciate you coming into my show to be willing to give this information out there for a number of reasons. You're going to find it. If it's not here already, I'll even go back that up. It's here. Okay, it's in Washington. It's in California. We're not an island, right? I mean, we're attached to all this stuff. So let's just say it's November of 2024. Somebody's got themselves a big 300-point buck or bull elk out there, and they get it tested, and it turns out positive. Comes from a certain area, Eastern Oregon. Pick a unit, doesn't matter. What's the next step?
Well, first off, I'm not taking for granted the fact that we got an early detection, right? Like if you said that somebody shot a bull in November 2024, we didn't find out about it for another couple of years or something like that, that's an issue. But we do have a CWD plan, and so that plan dictates what our next steps are going to be. And generally speaking, our plan first requires us to go back to that hunter, find out everything we possibly can from them, get whatever parts and pieces they may still have in their possession. We then communicate with all of our partners, agencies, etc., and set up an incident command. Then we have a communication plan put into place and implemented to make sure hunters, the general public, legislators, everybody is aware of what's going on and what immediate changes might be enacted. So then the third thing, which is a little, maybe most critical, is that then we go try to determine the prevalence and distribution of the disease. Go out there and figure out what size of circle are we dealing with. And again, it's that early detection that helps keep that circle small. So once we've determined kind of that size of that circle, then it's an immediate management response based on the situation. And then we factor in the kind of the final step is the long-term management action. So people say, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, it depends on the situation, right? So like if it's a captive deer facility, that's totally different than a hunter harvest one, maybe in the wilderness, in the middle of nowhere. That's how we respond to that. Our tools available, the accessibility, that varies enormously. So we don't yet know what that's going to be, but we know what some of the common management actions are, which are oftentimes a reduction in number of animals, just because this can be spread animal to animal. So those are the things that you can just assume that, especially through that stage of determining the prevalence and distribution, we're having to take animals to test. So that might be recruiting hunters, ODFW staff, wildlife services, others to try to get on the ground to sample a critical number of animals to feel that we can adequately assess kind of that circle and what the rate is of animals testing positive.
Does the animal have to be dead in order to be tested?
Thus far, yes. That's why hunters are key, because you think about it from like a business standpoint, you're going to send out tens of thousands of these people to hide behind every tree, every bunch grass across the state, that they're generating those animals for testing. It's a beautiful system, and they're helping themselves all along the way.
I got so many more questions based on what his response just was. I mean, really, think about it. What does that look like? And maybe that'll be a question when we come back from this break. But in the end, you can tell this isn't a joke. This is certainly something that if you just literally just want to blow it off, we're all hunters, okay? We're all folks that don't want to have to deal with sometimes reality, right? Sometimes it's easier to just, you know, well, whatever, you know. This isn't one of those situations. We all care about this too much. The original and true conservationists in this country are hunters and fisher people. That's it. Without us, just imagine where we would be right now. This is a huge deal. It's certainly something that we've got to be concerned with. I have a question, though, for Derek from Jay in Tualatin. Maybe it's more of a comment on how his testing process went. So when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. We'll be right back.
Outdoor GPS is brought to you by Yakima Bait, steeped in tradition, innovation, and fishing success. And by Procure Bait Sense, ruthlessly effective.